Welcome back to the Blindsiders. I am Ben here with Dylan and Brian talking about episode number 7 of Survivor 48. We have the split tribal episode, an episode that all of us love dearly. Yeah.
This is our annual bitch about this twist episode. Welcome to it, everybody. I guess it's biannual, right?
Biannual, usually, yeah.
Yeah.
We had our split. It's a yearly tradition, or bi-yearly tradition, actually. We had our split. We had our people of color voted out in the split. One of them, I am not surprised at all they're gone. The other one, I am actually pretty salty that they were the one to not make the jury. Lots to hate on this episode. I actually think that this was one of the weaker Survivor episodes that we've gotten for sure this season. And I think even going back maybe a season or two. Almost honestly, maybe back to when Matt was kind of the victim in what was that, 45, 46, whatever that was. Matt and Franny, that duo.
Yeah. That was the one where I was like, do I even like Survivor anymore? Is this even good?
Yeah, because he couldn't. Had his idol in the other beach. Yeah,
and I'm not at that point, because I think we were in a little bit more crisis mode then than we were now. I do think we have a lot of cause for concern moving forward, which we will discuss. But overall, I was pretty disappointed with this episode.
Yep. There's exactly one path that if the season goes down, it will be good. And that's the Kyle and Camilla, take over the game from the inside. Other than that, it's a little bleak at the moment. We lost Say, who's like probably the biggest character of the season so far, and someone who, she was talking about, Kata got like 9 lives, and I was very much enjoying that, like her like bobbing and weaving and making it through, and to have her not even make the jury, it's like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah, no, I understand from like a logical, strategic perspective from the other players why they wouldn't want her on the jury, but from like a television perspective, it's like definitely going to be something that I guess is not having her on the jury.
I think the big thing about Say is I think Say is one of the more complex characters we've had in a few seasons, and I think another thing is that, make no mistake, we're obviously talking about the split tribal and Cedric kind of just completely going crazy town on Say in terms of his moves and what he was doing. In the end, Say did do this to herself. I think that there are parts of her gameplay that hopefully, if she gets a chance to come back again, which, like, according to everybody, she has a somewhat chance of apparently coming back from 50. I honestly kind of hope she does not come back from 50, but I would love to see her in a returning season. I hope that this is a season of learning for Say, because I do think that there's a good player there, or at the very least a chaotic player that can also make good moves. I do think she was handicapped a little bit with her tribe and kind of the way things transpired, but in the end, she was very, very vengeful with the way her votes and what she wanted to do. Voting, her only focus here, voting out Mitch, where you can understand wanting to just easily go after the other person, which is something I will talk about with this half merge and why it sucks. She really seemingly didn't make a whole lot of attempts to save herself in the end. So sad to see Say go. Really wish she was the one to make the jury and not Cedric. But there are bigger fish to fry discussing this episode outside of Say.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think as far as 50 goes, I think I've seen her name and Mary's name as far as people from this season as people who potentially are in the mix. So I don't, obviously, like, it's still early, but so we don't have like full knowledge of what the cast actually looks like or how accurate these leaks or spoilers are. But so it looks like maybe like a 50-50 chance that she's on 50, a 50-50 chance. Yeah. So yeah, I agree. I think like it is going to take away a lot from the season to not have her on it at all, like even as a juror. Because I agree that she was very like a complex player and a complex like character on the show. Like it's rare that you really get somebody who has very stark personality flaws, but is like also self-aware about those flaws and like kind of almost like steps on the gas even harder because of that, and like leans into it even further. And then, we speculated last week about her decision to vote for Cedric in the situation where like she, it didn't seem like it. She was actually realistically in danger, even though she got a lot of votes. But it is like, a scary thing for her to walk away from that, and it's like a 7-5-1 vote, and she's the one, and like she was the one who got 5 votes, and like one person votes differently, like maybe that could have been the difference maker if like a split happened the other way. And she basically fully admits that she did it completely out of pettiness, just to rattle Cedric and make him to get a taste of his own medicine, basically. Of like, because like Cedric also has chaotic gameplay. I think this is something that we've tried to talk about, but it gets lost in the like shuffle between Cedric and Sei, because Sei's personality is more chaotic. But as far as gameplay goes, like up until last week, her gameplay had been more stable. Then Cedric had actually had the more chaotic gameplay, in my opinion. So I think this was like her basically stabbing back at him, being like, hey, it doesn't feel too good when somebody else plays kind of chaotically and irrationally in a way that like could potentially hurt you.
Cedric is one of my least favorite jurors of recent memory. I'm sure Cedric is a great guy outside of Survivor. I don't necessarily want him operating on me, but who knows? He could be, it could be one of these people that are just not going to survive, but are real true aces in their professional field. But I think I will respectfully ask the other surgeon to do it, because it seems that Cedric doesn't know what he wants or really kind of what he's doing here on this island. And it is unfortunate, because we had talked about, I think after the very first episode, we kind of had these two different duo alliances. We had Joe and Eva, and we had Cedric and Sei, who were kind of setting up as like these two kind of like father-daughter, older brother, younger sister type duos. And I thought that was going to lead kind of potentially towards an exciting clash down the road, like two potentially very emotional alliances that could be blindsided. I thought that was going to make for great TV. Obviously, very quickly, when we spent time with Cedric, we figured out that was not going to be the case with him. I see a lot of people saying, it's sad to see Cedric go, because he was so chaotic in the things he did. And I could not disagree more. I am very happy to see Cedric go. Like, the only regret is that he was not on the tribe that did not have a person make the jury. Like I've said already. I think Sei would be a much more interesting jury member. I think the thought that Cedric is going to be picking a person to win $1 million is a little troubling. It feels very, very undeserved too. I would do the trade-off of having Sei on the jury if it also means having Cedric. And it goes back to just this split merge. The split tribal with like the faux merge. The merge is technically starting now. This is the real merge. I just hate it. I hate it. We talk about this every year. It's detrimental to people's games, and I think that they've done a good job so far compared to, I think, where we were at this point last year with like all these idols and advantages out there that, benefited a player like Rachel. It seemed like she was getting very lucky. So far, they seem like they've kind of steer cleared for that to happen, and then we go back to this. To me, it really seems like one of the last true things that are bogging down modern Survivor is they are so gung-ho on keeping this split merge, the split tribal with this like fake merge. It's just I don't know. I don't get why they do it. I think you see the actual physical reactions of players on the island when it's announced that this is happening, because I'm assuming everybody goes in each season like hopefully this is the season they finally don't do that. And then it is. I think Sei, especially if I go back and watch the episode, I think Sei's reaction was like rolling her eyes and kind of like like spinning around so Jeff didn't see her, because she pretty much had the same reaction that I have every single time at home when this is like officially announced, that even though we know it's coming, there's like this hope that it's not, and it does, and it sucks. And I think it's this particularly, I think it's really starting to kind of be like, all right, like enough is actually enough. They need to stop doing this, because it's ruining the momentum of games in these seasons out of nowhere. Because I think people they get to this and all they want to do is just make the next tribal. They want to make the merge. They want to make the jury. And I think that they vote scared, and they vote the easiest vote possible rather than the best strategic vote. And that sucks. It sucks, and I hate it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that the twists at the start of this, the way this is structured, it incentivizes conservative gameplay, which is just boring. And that's the reason the last two episodes, this one and the previous one, have been kind of strategically boring. And I also think it's almost like kind of, weirdly comical that the show says that last week when there's 13 people going to tribal council and voting somebody out, that's not the merge. But this week when there's 6 people going to tribal council here and 6 people going to tribal council here in 2 separate groups, that is the merge. Like, do words just not mean anything now, or like what are we doing?
It's the faux merge. It's not real. It's once again, we say it every year. And like, this is, for whatever reason, this particular episode really pissed me off. Like, we say it every single year. That wasn't on a real merge. The merge is now. We have our first jury member. This is the merge. I don't know. I almost wonder if it's all a troll job by Jeff. I honestly really think it might be.
Yeah, I just think I've said my piece about this twist so much. It wasn't good when they did it in Fiji the first time. It's never been good. It's never made good television. And for some reason, they just keep going back to the well when there's so many other twists that could have more potential. They did one world one time. They could do it again and make it interesting. Like, yeah, it didn't work great that season, but this has just never worked. It's never going to work. If you want to do a double elimination, just have 2 tribes lose in the pre-merge, and bam, there's your double elimination. It just feels like that would be the easiest thing to do.
If this is a timing thing, 100%. Have a triple elimination the first episode. I don't care. Well, like, literally everyone goes home in the first episode.
I mean, the double elimination in the pre-merge too would also potentially help balance out a situation where you have a losing tribe like a Vula, or like this has happened in half of the seasons in New Era, or one tribe just keeps on losing. It forces a second place team to also go to a tribal council, and that might weaken them and they might lose the next one. And then like maybe it could spiral that way instead. I mean, the real solution is to stop doing 3 tribes that like we've said every single season, every single podcast. I feel like it's not a twist when you do it every season. It's just a format change at this point. Like, this is the format for the show, and everybody knows it's going to happen. Like, everybody's coming in expecting either the final 12 or the final 10 for there to be a split tribal. Like, it's not a surprise. It's not like people are getting caught off guard and it's like, oh, we have to change up our strategy now. Everyone knows it's coming because they've done it every single season. So like, just if you're going to like have a consistent format that you do every season, just make it be a good format. You're getting the worst of both worlds, where you're like doing a twist, but the twist is the same every season, and it's a bad twist.
Especially on a show that has been priding itself recently on like evolving and changing like the game. Like, this is where this is the hill they're going to die on, is keeping the faux merge with the double tribal. It's just, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the same logic with the final making.
Try to like be positive with a slight tangent, but what did your guys' favorite like format change twist? Like, mine is when there's 2 tribes, making them both do an individual immunity challenge and both go to tribal. I think that's fun. I think, you know, I've used it when I used to run games a bunch of times because I think it's an interesting thing of like, oh, you have to go to tribal. One of you can still win immunity in your tribal group. And, you know, I think
Mhm.
it makes for an interesting way to do a double boot. But what about you guys? What's your favorite like format twist?
Yeah, I think that's a good one. Let me think now.
That is a good question. I wish you provided notes before we recorded, so I could have
Yeah,
came here with
All right.
with an
Well, we
answer.
got
you know
we
what?
got both
I'll
tribes
give.
lose and you do a merged tribal council, you know.
I
That
think that
seems
the kidnapping in China was a good format twist.
Yeah, so that one was interesting where the winning tribe got to basically save somebody from the losing tribe, right?
Yeah.
I, I think this is a twist I'm making up my own. I do think a fun twist would be, so now we're just getting into Fantasyland. For
Sure.
me, I think a fun twist would be you have a double tribal. Each tribe votes someone out, and those two people swap going to the other tribe.
Yeah,
Oh,
Australian Survivor did that.
Australian Survivor, yeah, has
So
done that.
okay, so I think something like that would be a lot of fun. I think if you, yeah,
That was a controversial twist when they did
I think
it.
that's if you're doing something that adds that's unorthodox to the game, and you're adding in something that's whether like it's adding a social twist to the game, you know, or like this the double tribal we're at, this doesn't add like a beneficial like social twist or anything to the game. Like we said, it causes people to scramble and to vote sometimes illogically or to vote just because they're scared. I think if you can find something that adds in that twist that isn't stupid, that's not like forcing the game, that you know, it's just a fun like, and not even telling people. I think if you don't tell somebody beforehand, that's where it gets fun. Because if you have people thinking that they're just going to a regular thing and then something happens, that's fun. I think I have a much longer list of stuff I don't like. I guess more so than the
Mhm.
twist that they do. I for one wish that they would. I wish that they would throw in more of like that the idol that Tony got of like you can play it after the votes. Like if
Tyler
you threw that
Perry, I know.
if you threw that in once like every couple of years, I think that would be a lot of fun. It's stuff like that. I think if you mix it up, you know, with things that you know work, that would be more beneficial, for sure. I would love to see that Australian twist on U.S. Survivor. I think that'd be very cool.
Yeah, I mean the show has done things in the past where they've like not like I mean the Hourglass Twist is probably famously the worst instance of them doing this in 41. But then they've also done like the first time they did Age of Extinction in season 38, they didn't tell them that it existed until the first person came back at the merge. So people got voted out and they found it out afterwards that they were still in the game. And then Outcasts was a similar thing, obviously in Pearl Islands, where they just kind of like randomly brought back everyone who had been voted out and been like, hey, some people are coming back in. You know, nobody knew, but it's happening. So
I'm not a big fan of Exile Island either. I think Token Genes was that the first time they ever did it, was like the Exile where they have to leave for 3 days or whatever.
No,
wasn't the first
Exile
one?
Island season 12 was
Okay.
I guess if
Yeah,
you want to
that
get
makes sense.
technical, Palau had the first instance of someone being exiled
Mhm.
when was Janu, right?
Yeah,
Lost the immunity challenge first, and she had to go live on a beach for a night by herself. But Exile Island season 12 was the first
yeah.
instance of Exile Island.
Anything you can give me where you have like that shot of Coach walking back after his time at
Yeah,
Exile.
the martyr, what's it called? The martyr approach, whatever it's called.
Anything you can do that gives me something like that is great. It's just you have to do something that matches narratively too. You know, I think what sucks about this double tribal, and I don't want to waste the whole episode on it, is we've had basically the triplet of Say, Cedric, and Mary from that tribe this entire season. Um, which one is going to get Say out? Is Say going to get both of them out? Is Mary and Say actually going to settle things? Are they actually going to end up going for each other's throats again in the game? Is Mary going to get revenge on, or is Say going to get revenge on Cedric? Is that relationship going to get mended? And our resolution to that was we get Say alone away from Mary and Cedric being voted out in like a very, very underwhelming way. No reaction from Mary or Cedric live, or no like satisfaction from the vote out. It's also, it feels like a waste of time for everything that we had invested with that up to this point too. I think that's like the biggest crime out of all of it. If you take away the actual, like how it kind of screws over these people's games, I think like the biggest crime as a viewer is that like I just feel like I've completely wasted time with that tribe. I think that tribe probably goes down as one of the worst tribes of New Era Survivor in terms of what they gave the game, kind of what we got while they were there. I think it's just all a big stinky pile of crap.
Yeah. Technically, they've all been voted out, right? Because Mary saved herself with the shot in the dark.
True
for that.
Yeah. So is Bulo worse than Lulu? Is I guess the conversation. I think Lulu was previously the worst. I think we have to say.
I think so, right? Because Lulu was. Remind me, which one was Lulu again?
Lulu was the Caleb and Emily tribe.
I mean, because we got the excitement of Caleb successfully playing his shot in the dark.
But we got that with Mary as well.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. So I guess that's actually, it furthers the comparison there. Yeah. I feel like based on the narratively what we got with Emily, I think that probably outweighs what we ended up getting with this tribe, honestly.
I guess we probably have to wait and see how Mary's story finishes before we can make a full comparison.
I genuinely don't think it's shaping up well. Seeing how I think she's had a combined 1 confessional in the past 2 episodes. She had 0 this episode. It's not feeling great for her, honestly. But maybe she's getting the Erica treatment where she's quiet, for majority of the merge, and then out of nowhere we're gonna get an end game from her. I don't know, but maybe recency bias. I probably have to go with this tribe now for worst, just on like gut feeling.
Yeah, I think I could see Lulu beating them in a head-to-head challenge for what that's worth.
I think Caleb is he's awesome in challenges.
I think if you run like a million simulations of that tribe versus the other, and like how many times do you get a winner out of that, I feel like Lulu comes out on top a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I think this might be the worst tribe in the New Era. Sorry, but yeah. What did you guys think of the challenge? That was some fun editing.
That was the highlight of the episode for me, for sure.
By far, yeah.
David, that was awesome, because I found myself like randomly during days of the week, me and my wife I'll start like just chanting at her the survivor score. Yeah, that was a cool showdown. David and Joe, that was cool. I even enjoyed David and Kyle for a little bit. David is just he's a freak. We talked, Jonathan is like the first one that comes to memory of recent survivor, of somebody who is like just like a physical a monster. David feels like he's a different specimen, honestly. He didn't even really start breaking a sweat until like an hour into that challenge. That was crazy impressive.
Yeah, if they have Jonathan on season 50, they kind of have to get David on just to be a counterbalance to him.
It really shows me to work on my grip strength.
Yeah, you gotta get
I literally today bought one of those things. It's coming tomorrow in the mail from Amazon.
I
love it.
Yeah.
I totally see how being a stuntman, how you need to have a very, very strong grip. And I feel like he looked like he could have went all day, honestly.
He wasn't phased at all. He was doing it one-handed. He was like switching off one-handed. By the thumbnail, I put that one where he's like leaning back like this, like crazy.
Yeah.
And like he's so jacked. I'm sure it was like 50 or 60 pounds. Like it's not like it was light for him to be doing that.
Yeah. Just fun challenge. It was like the only time I had fun, honestly, during this entire episode. That's the other bummer thing too, is it does feel like Jeff's having a lot of fun this season. I think Jeff really meshes well with this tribe of people. And I think like we've seen, based on leaks and reports of potentially having, a player returning from this season. I think that it shows that Jeff likes this season, likes these people, which I think just kind of adds into the bummer of how much of a stinker this episode was and the twists and all that, because this cast can carry a lot. They can't carry their game being completely flipped upside down on them and like all strategic ripped from them. Yeah, but that was fun. I enjoyed that, that 50 minutes or whatever we spent there. That was cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it felt very similar to like the similar endurance challenge in San Juan del Sur. We had like the chicken nuggets, and then talking about Jeff being naked on 2.5 Men.
Yeah.
And Natalie spitting on herself.
Yeah,
it's very similar vibes.
Getting herself like a beer and hot wings, like having Jeff take her order. That was so good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it felt like a very similar kind of vibe, where it's just like a lot of kind of individual funny moments all crammed into a really interesting challenge that was also very competitive to watch. So
yeah, we need Wes Snail back. Chicken nuggets. Just that moment is like, I want a chicken nugget eating contest at the like county fair, and Dip's like, what? Like his mouth full of chicken nuggets while saying it, just so good.
I read on the Reddit, Cedric is going to spontaneously combust at Final Tribal because he can't vote against or protect Say in any way.
Yeah, I know somebody was making a joke like he'll accidentally write Say's name down at the Final Tribal. I'll have to like ask him to change his vote.
Cedric being surprised he was going home is so on brand.
Yeah, I guess we can talk about because after this episode, we basically are looking at a situation where this like Alpha Guys Alliance plus Eva plus like Camilla as like a hanger on 6 has a technical majority now if they don't turn on each other. So like in the other 4 people that we're looking at are like Mitch, Chrissy, Star, and Mary. And it's like, are any of those really gonna like do something about it? I don't see it, but we'll see. I mean, so I feel like we're really kind of marching towards a situation where, unless like Brian said at the top of the show, right, Kyle and Camilla kind of make some crazy moves, it feels kind of like the storyline of the season has been written, and we're just kind of watching it play out at this point.
I got to be honest. I need Chrissy and Mitch out of the game because I think that's the first. I am buying into this alpha like good guy, honest people alliance because it inevitably has to crumble, and I think that's going to make for the best betrayals and backstabs, and I think Camille and Kyle are the key to that. I need Mitch and Chrissy. I need them to be the next 2 to go before we have this path forward, because I think we saw it in this episode, and I think that they're probably doing it again next episode, where this episode, it was pitched to us in the edit that Shaheem was really in trouble. And I think the whole thing was to make up for 2 very underwhelming, boring tribals. And obviously now they're setting up for David to kind of be this he's essentially kind of almost going down a slight like coach arc of paranoia. And he's on top, but he wants to preach playing this good game, but he's not sure how to trust these people. I need that to last as long as possible. I think if Mitch and Chrissy don't go in the next 2 to 3 tribals, and we have a situation where we lose like Shaheen, or we lose Kyle, or we lose like Joe, or even David, I think that is the split timeline we're going down of where this season is going to completely crumble. I think Mitch and Chrissy are 2 not good players. I don't think they honestly add a whole lot to what is left in this game. In a season where it just doesn't feel like the swing votes are going to be like the big difference makers where they sometimes are in other seasons. I need them gone. I like Star for the fact that I think Star is kind of turning into a great personality to have for her confessionals. I don't know how much impact she'll have on the game overall at the end, but I want to keep her around just for that entertainment factor. And it does feel like Mary has more to give us. And whereas Mitch and Chrissy, for me, it just doesn't feel like that. I think Chrissy several times now has voted in a way that it doesn't make a lot of sense, or she's voted scared. And I think that Mitch is, I think Mitch is just Mitch. He's there, and I love Mitch. I love to see that he's living his best life. Went to the Final Four with he was at the Final Four with, I think Tyson. It was Tyson, Ethan, and someone else. I forget who. I think it was Tyson. I thought that was cool. I'm like, I love like how the Survivor community, they all like sometimes hang out when they see each other. I think that's great. But I think that's the most we're getting out of Mitch so far. I think Mitch has kind of already had, his meaningful impact on the season with the stuttering and all that, and kind of that disability for him, and getting his voice out to share why that's important and how to treat people with that. But I just don't think he has an impact on the game, and it wouldn't feel right based on what we've seen from him, what we've seen on Chrissy, if all of a sudden they're going to turn into like this important factor on the season. I need them gone so we can then kind of get to, we have all these strong, charismatic players who are going to have to start stabbing each other in the back. And we have Kyle and Camilla, and then we have Joe and Eva, who are the kind of the two rock solid alliances that I think will add that additional kind of like emotional factor to it. If we start dropping those players quickly, I think this season tanks very fast.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of feels to me, I actually don't know how clear it is to the other players that this like 5/6 group exists. I think like obviously I think people see that Joe and Eva are a duo, and they can probably like tie Shaheen on with them. And you can kind of see like people like Mitch talking to Shaheen and Joe and trying to like get in with them. But like, I don't know if they're just like really effectively hiding this like Alpha Alliance thing, because it doesn't seem like anybody's really like mobilizing in any meaningful way against them. And so the options are either like nobody realizes that this is like a group that at this point is strong. Like obviously that could change down the line, or everyone's like, okay, let me like just try to make it to the final 7 with this group, and then they'll turn each other, and then I'll be able to maybe pick up the pieces, which I think is like, I think it's short-sighted. I don't really think that's a realistic pathway to a win. I think that might be a realistic pathway, like a final 4 or final 3, but like you're not going to win a jury vote playing that way, like unless there's some like crazy bitterness from the other members. Like, unless like like the Davids and the Joes of the world are like really bitter at Kyle and Camilla. It's just, it doesn't seem like it's a reasonable path. Like I don't really see how like a Mary, what does Mary see her path forward from this position? Because she's talking about like, oh, I'm sticking with my alliance in terms of like voting out Cedric. Does she imagine herself as like a 7th member of this group, or does she think that she's like tacked on with the Sivas, or like where does she like, we haven't really gotten enough from her to like see what she sees as her path forward from here. Maybe we'll get it now because she's like the last Vula standing in the next episode, but like it really doesn't feel like anybody has a plan outside of these 6 players. Like any of the other 4 players have any sort of semblance of a plan that isn't just like immediate survival.
Yeah, I think the biggest twist to all that is obviously Camilla. Overall, I think she's kind of the ace in the hole, especially for Kyle too. I think that it's less interesting as a viewer to watch Kyle duke it out with David and Joe straight up, way less than it is to watch Kyle and Camilla scheme in the back where seemingly nobody knows. Nobody they're doing a great job of nobody knows that they're tight, which I find really impressive. I think that's kind of that's also part of the path towards the end, where I find myself probably still satisfied if Joe or David or even Eva win. But I think the way more satisfying and the way that this season can be legendary is to have Camilla and Kyle do what they're doing. if we lose that, I agree. I don't see Mary being able to pull off any big moves. Obviously, what I just said, I don't see Chrissy and Mitch at all being able to pull off these big moves. And Star, honestly, I think Star is just having a great time. It kind of seems like Star is potentially loyal to a fault to her alliance going forward, which is why I totally understand not wanting to involve her voting out. But like the situation I brought up was, why did say Mary and Mitch not bring up trying to go after Eva in this tribal? That's kind of like a big, that's what shows to me, one, because we have this split tribal, that they're afraid, people are mainly afraid to make these big moves. Say was so blinded kind of by the faults in her game to even consider that. And then B or C of, these players don't want to make these moves now. For whatever reason, whether it's a split tribal or they think that they're in this alliance when they're really not. I don't know. Chrissy especially, I don't get. I don't get how Chrissy does not realize she's on the bottom of all this now. I don't get how she doesn't do that. I said that when she voted out Bianca. I think that like she was not building a foundation to further her game. Yeah, so I think it so much relies on that Kyle and Camilla secret assassin thing that they have been planning out. And we keep seeing pieces of Camilla, like we keep getting those parts in these episodes where she goes up and she is basically playing these mind games with these people, and she does it in such a clean and casual way that it has to pay off. It has to. And I know we just talked about like with things with Say and Cedric, where narratively we didn't end up getting anything at all from that. The Kyle and Camilla thing feels like it has to pay off somewhere. And if we're sitting here next week saying, Camilla or Kyle are gone because they messed this scheme up or in some way, like then we can say, well, they just didn't have it in them, where, then that's where the end game gets boring, that Alpha Alliance. So much depends on them, in my opinion, to make this season truly great. And like I said, I think there's so much high risk and high reward. I think this season could be legendary if we get that path of like we get almost like a Natalie Anderson like we get towards the end and all of a sudden she springs up out of nowhere, her plans worked and she's got her revenge, and then now she's kind of just cutting her way to the end. We need that in this season. And it sucks because 2 weeks ago we were saying how great this cast was, how great this season was, but now I think now that the curtains behind the stage or whatever, we're starting to see behind the curtains of what's going on. Like I think we need that. Fingers crossed. I'm like stressing out about it because the past 24 hours I've talked myself about how potentially this season could come a huge stinker out of nowhere, and that's our clear path forward.
Yeah. No, Brian, what were your thoughts, I guess, on the Camilla move? It feels like a lot of stage setting, right? And like maybe they weren't even trying to go after Shaheen in this round, and they were just kind of like potentially like setting pieces up for a future move. Like, I guess, what was your read on the Camilla and David kind of conversation that happened?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not particularly worried about the season long term because I do think Camilla and Kyle will start to make some moves, and I think ultimately this honor thing is not a lasting strategy because, like, I mean, that's kind of the story of Survivor, right? People come into it with like the intentions of being honorable, but ultimately selfishness wins out in the end. I think it's only going to take a little bit of pushing and prodding to get these macho bros to turn on one another by, using perhaps the honor thing as like a reason, and that's the beginning of it here, being like, well, you might think this is happening, but possibly this person's being a snake. You don't want them to snake you before you can snake them, right? And I think that will be the downfall. And I think the reason they included that scene was because this is like the planting the seeds, the Kamala seeds in David's brain.
Yep. No, I agree. I think that it's like a brilliant way to play around this kind of strategy too, from Camilla and Kyle. In particular, the way Camilla does it is like the only, like, you're not going to convince somebody to play Survivor properly, by like just like telling them that they're wrong, or they're going to lose. Just like you have to make them make the decision themselves by tricking them into thinking that they're going to get duped by people who are using their good nature against them, right? It's like, it's kind of like, it's similar if we're talking about, coach comparisons, like to what happened in Token Sheen's. We have like the Dragon Slayer with Brendan, and then you have like the JT and the Steven kind of playing the Camilla and Kyle role behind the scenes, using this coach structure that he's built to kind of dismantle Tim Buehrer from the inside out. And, if that's what we get for the rest of the season, I think that's really good. I think that if we walk away from the season with a Kyla or a Camilla win after they've like kind of eaten this alliance from the inside out to benefit themselves, I'm sure that there's no way that can't be a brilliant story. I'm just worried about the universe where that's not the story that we're getting.
I'm just completely delusional and just being like, no, that's what's going to happen, obviously. But it could definitely not happen and be a very boring end game too. Like that's totally possible, but I'm gaslighting myself into believing that it's not going to be the case.
Yep.
I think if you're asking me the most satisfying ending, it's probably they pull that off. Camilla wins, Kyle gets second, and maybe like how many votes will be at the end? 8. So if Camilla can win, maybe in like a 5-3 vote, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably the most satisfactory win for me too. Yeah. I think I've talked about how I desperately want that next great player. I want someone that I think the great players see this opportunity. They see David. They see that this guy is, he's still hell-bent on playing like this straightforward good guy game while also being an alpha. I think if you can be, you're this small gamer woman who has been planting seeds this whole time to kind of pull that, finally spring out of the grass and bite and kill your victim. I think that is so cool. And I think having, one of these other alphas be the one that helped to be there to kind of help guide you to do that. I think we haven't really seen anything like that in the new seasons, honestly, in my opinion. I think when you go back to D, I still of the opinion I think D is far and away the best winner of the new era, but I don't necessarily think her game was the most sexy game that a winner has played before. I think if we can have Camilla get that, even Marianne, I gotta go back to Marianne too. Marianne just happened to be the last one to pull the trigger on everybody, and it worked out for her. Where if Camilla can do this, and you have this paper trail of all these things you've done, and for me, it seems like a cast that will respect that in the end, rather than being bitter. I don't know for sure. We can see sometimes people completely change when we get towards that end game, but I'm officially, and it seems like we all are, I'm officially all aboard. I'm on the Camilla Kyle, and I like Joe, Eva. I like David a lot. I like Star a lot. I like Shaheen a lot too, honestly. I think Shaheen is an interesting player in the sense that I think Shaheen's charismatic. I think he's fun to listen talk. And I think he seems like a pretty chill dude outside of the game as well. But I Camilla and Kyle, those are my two. I just hope I am on the opposite end, Brian. I'm actually very nervous.
Yeah,
I think it's good. It's good.
You're just gonna gaslight yourself, though. You just gonna be like, "No, it's not gonna happen."
No, I'm definitely on board. I think I agree. I think Camilla is the person that I want to win the season the most right now. And I think that you brought up Natalie Anderson before. I think that arc has a lot of parallels in terms of like she's in an above average position right now, and she has been in an above average position the same way that Natalie was outside of like the Jeremy blindside, I guess, in San Juan del Sur. For Camilla, it's an above average position, but it's not a winning position right now because she is still kind of this tagger on this larger alliance, and she has Kyle, but like unless they can definitively manipulate David, like it's still going to be at best 3 against 3, like, you know, with Shaheen, Joe, and Eva on the other side, and they have Star, who's probably going to last longer than the others of, you know, Mitch, Mary, and Chrissy. That seems to be kind of the plot right now that's being set up. So like, if Camilla is able to recognize that she's in a very strong position but not a winning position, and do what Natalie did in San Juan del Sur when she was in a similar position, which is recognize that she had the agency to like slightly move pieces around to do things like what happened then, which was the John Blindside, to catapult her into an endgame that she could actually win. Like that would be a legendary storyline. And I agree, that would probably put her in terms of like the new era winners, like near the top, if not at the top. And definitely narratively, I think that kind of a storyline would be very good and something that we haven't really seen in a while.
I desperately hope that Kyle is in her Jeremy, though, in the sense that he gets blindsided, and that's kind of
like fuels her.
Yeah, I agree. I'm like hyping myself up on Camilla a lot. I really am.
We've been shown so many instances, even this episode, even though it didn't play out in like the way, like we've been shown so many instances of her just being very, very adept at like social manipulation and social deception, and like being able to just like without even really blinking an eye, just craft a narrative and sell that narrative to somebody in order to accomplish a strategic goal. And like it doesn't seem like it's really something that she struggles with at all, and it's very, very impressive.
It's also scary too, in the sense that a game like that can crumble very, very quickly, especially with making that big move at the right time, which we've seen a lot recently. Those players making it way too early, and then it kind of spirals into a path of whether we have one dominant player who then just wins out, or we have, you know, a constant domino effect of everybody then starts pulling the moves too early. And that's why we don't really talk about, you know, these greats, you know, and that's why I think it's also a huge compliment comparing her to Natalie Anderson, who is my favorite winner of all time. I think it's nice. It's cool to be able to say that about someone and have the foundation there. It's just a matter, can they pull it off? Can they do it? Does she actually have the clutch gene? Yeah, we'll see.
Yep.
Yeah. That's really all I have to say about this episode.
Yeah, it was tough. I went to bed last night a little, you know, not upset, a little. I felt very underwhelmed and unsure of the future, as I'm sure a lot of people these days do. But for me, it has to do with a reality TV show.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really facts. I really like the cast. I think the cast is very likable. I think as characters, like on like a television characters, they're very compelling and like very interesting people, very rootable people for the most part. But I'm just very worried where the kind of strategic storyline goes from here.
Yep. Rude. But hey, we could be sitting here in how many 5 episodes left, right? Or 4, whatever it is.
There's 5 or 6. Yeah.
We could be sitting here, you know, in 4 or 5 weeks saying, hey, this is where it all started. That David, her planting those seeds with David is where it all started for Camilla. And we could be talking about this, you know, the best new era season possible. That's why I think there's so much, it could go one way or the other so quickly. So hopefully we get that version.
Yeah, we're like at the meme, like the Crossroads meme, where like one side is like the evil like lightning storm castle, the other side is like the bright, brilliant future.
It really does feel like that, honestly, with this season. And Brian is a little too happy. Brian's a little too happy-go-lucky for me right now when we're talking about it, because that's really how it feels for me. I'm like,
Brian's got the Say gene where like he's aware that he's, you know, a little bit delusional.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You got to be a little delusional to, you know, make stuff happen. I feel like, because you got to believe that it can happen in order to make it happen. Although I have no control over it. I'm just hoping Camilla and Kyle made it happen last year when this was filmed.
Mhm.
One thing I do want to shout out, because I kind of shit all over Mitch and Chrissy. I do want to shout out. I do think that was a very, very good block of vote for Mitch. I think kind of eliminating any chance of say getting or playing her shot in the dark was a solid move, even though I don't necessarily agree overall with him wanting to vote out say, but I do think that was a good move since he was so committed to doing that. A good Hail Mary lot. Like I need to survive this tribe, so maybe not the best overall in the end, but that was the right move for Mitch, where we a lot of times have that advantage played the wrong way. I think that was the right move for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I do agree. Like best case move for, the say Mitch Chrissy trio would have been like, hey, let's not vote out any of us. And let's, Mitch secretly uses his block vote on like Star, and then they vote out Eva and try to blindside her. And the only way that really goes wrong is if like Star is able to reveal to Eva somehow between the votes being cast and the idle opportunity to get played that like her vote got blocked, and that spooks Eva.
It seemed like they could have very easily got at Eva if they wanted to.
Yeah, no, it was the move. The move was on the table, but I don't think that it was a move that any of them really cared to try to make.
Yep.
What can you do?
What can you do, Brian?
I don't know.
My hope we're going to be here next week talking about this game is pedal to the metal again. That's I'm on my delusional Brian territory now, and I think I think that's where we'll be. David seems like a fun, paranoid, kind of like guy on top person potentially.
Mm-hmm.
That could be fun, or that could be a 5-minute scene we get, and the rest of the episode is very clear cut of who's going home. Who knows?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, Dylan, where can they find you online?
DJ Clubberlang, you see the @ here on everything. X, the everything app.
Mm-hmm.
Twitter, which is also X. Twitch, which is where I will be streaming tonight, selling my drugs. With my two chemists over here. OnlyFans, DJ Clubberlang. Just kidding about that. Follow me there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Depending how bad the economy gets with tariffs coming in and out, maybe the OnlyFans will be real one day for all of us. We'll see what happens.
It's like my Twitch bio says. Stop asking me about my OnlyFans. I don't have one.
Oh man, Ben, where can they find you online?
You can find me on I guess Blue Sky, but I don't use Blue Sky really. I think I posted yesterday. I maybe posted this morning. I don't know. I posted about the economy, which is sad.
Yeah, very interesting, riveting stuff from us here. You can follow me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at the Fake BMar. And then I'm also on Blue Sky, though I really just retweet stuff that I post out to the Wicked Get Everything account on there.
Mm-hmm. I do that a lot as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And main channel is Wicked Get Everything. Just put a video up about why we didn't get a follow-up to the Factions game mode in The Last of Us Part 2, trying to capitalize on The Last of Us coming back to HBO this weekend. We'll see
Sunday.
how that goes. Yeah, very exciting. We're going to be covering Black Mirror here on this channel soon. That'll be a lot of fun. We're also covering The Last of Us. We're going to be doing a lot of podcasts coming up in short order.
Black Mirror came back today.
Very good reviews for it, too. Very, very good reviews.
Love that. Ben and Maggie, Jenny's sister, will be joining us for a Black Mirror podcast on this channel. So that'll be very exciting. And then, we also have Those Fake Nerds, where we cover nerd pop culture news. We could get sports. And, of course, this is Better Radio. So please subscribe. And thank you so much for listening. We'll see you in the next one.